And there we are, there we are, there we are. And we are live. We are live. What's up, internet world? My name is Coach Terry Bryant, and I'm the co-host of Hits and Heels. I started Hits and Heels about 2 years ago with my co-host Danny Wright. And this man made me a football coach. And so I wanted to kind of get on here and talk about sports, football, and promote women's tackle football. And other women that coach football. But because I'm an avid sports fan and basketball is my first love, I always go back to basketball. And so, of course, it is just so delightful for me to have another one of my Kentucky favorites, Jack Goose Givens, on as our guest today. Goose, welcome to His Heels.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me on. Coach, good to see you back there.
Nice seeing you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, listen, we're not going to hold up. All I want to know is, how did you get the name Goose? And I know you probably answered this on so many shows, but I have a different audience. And most of my audience probably don't know you like we do. You know, we're Kentucky fans. Yeah. And so I grew up in Kansas. I'm from Alabama. So a lot of my friends and family don't really know who you are and don't really follow Kentucky like we do. So if you could just tell us, how did you get the name Goose? And
then, back in high school at Bryan Station here in Lexington, some of the guy, my high school coach, his name was Barry Barlow. Coach Barlow took a few of us to a Kentucky Colonels basketball game. Now, a lot of your listeners probably won't know who the Kentucky Colonels were, but back in the day, there was the NBA and then there was the ABA.
Okay.
And the Kentucky Colonels was in the ABA and won a championship or two in the ABA. And on that team was a guy by the name of Goose Ligon. And Goose, according to the guys on my high school team, I resembled Goose in his style of play. And they started calling me Goose at the day after practice. The day after we went to that game at practice, all the folks all my guys started calling me Goose. And of course, at that time, I didn't like it. So, as is the case at that age, that made them call me Goose even more, because I didn't like it, and I tried to get them to stop calling me that. And of course, nowadays, more people know me as Goose than Jack. You know, so anyway, that's how Goose came about. He was a great player, and it was an honor to be named after him, such a great player, but I just wasn't crazy about the name. That's all.
Well, a lot of it probably Goose, if you will, had a lot to do with he was a pretty good player. I know who you're talking about. I don't know him, but I've heard of him. So with that said, it comes to a line that you're trying to establish you.
Right.
I mean, that would make me. I don't want to be called Virgil Lavis, who played for Westland back in the day and played for Chicago Bears, because I want to be known as Cisco Bryant.
Yeah.
So did that have something to do with it as well?
Well, at that time, I didn't know who I was, man. I mean, I think I was a freshman a sophomore in high school.
Right.
My first year of high school. Back in those days, you had junior high and high school. So I was trying to figure out who the heck I was, let alone who this other Goose was. But he was a great player. And some of it probably had to do with that, Cisco, because, you want to kind of establish yourself and be your own guy, if you will. So some of it might have had to do with that. But as I say, when I watched him play a little bit more and I realized how good a player he was, I started to feel pretty good about being compared to such a great basketball player.
Well, I'm gonna follow up, staying in high school for a second, Coach. Is that okay? I want to stay in high school just a little bit before we move up to college. when did, and you just said a few seconds ago, you didn't establish you yet. When did you know that you were Goose Gibbons? When in high school, when did you know I'm pretty decent at this basketball game here?
Well, you know, the thing that we judged how good we were on were in those days for us was how many letters you got sent from colleges. You know what I mean? I mean, we would wait around the last period of the day, and I had some great players on my high school team, and I had some really, really good players on my team, and probably of the 13 to 15 guys that I played with, the main guys that I played with throughout the course of my career, probably 12 of those guys went on to play college basketball. Not all did D1,
right?
But D2 and NAIA, they played college ball somewhere. So we had some really good players. But the last period of the day, when they'd come on and they'd make the announcements about what's going on, there might be a football game, there's a basketball game, that, you know, they go through all of that. And then they say, Jack Gibbons, could you come to the office to pick up mail? And I'd be so proud, man. I'm like, man, I don't even know where some of these kids, some of these schools are. I never heard of them, you know. But I really started feeling like, well, maybe they are interested in me when I started getting those letters. I mean, I started to get so many of them. The vast majority of them, I didn't even open up because they all have a form in them to fill out and send back. And I knew I wasn't interested in attending some of those colleges, but it was still good and a source of pride to be called. And they might call 5 of us, you know, and we'd all show up at about the same time. And I might have 15 letters. Another guy has 3 and another one has 17, you know, so we would compare and all of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of when I started to feel like I might have something going here with this basketball thing. And also at that time, it's particularly my sophomore year, I really liked baseball. I was a pretty good baseball player all up through my sophomore year. And then after my freshman year, I started to focus more on basketball because I grew from about 5'8" to about 6'3". So from that period on, I really started focusing on basketball. So that was kind of how that came about.
Okay, so how did you get it narrowed down to Kentucky? And we're gonna do some backtracking here. If you want to, we can backtrack because a lot of my listeners probably don't know who you are, but the local people know who you are, of course. So they know who you are. But just give me a little background, because what people don't know about you going into college from getting all these offers, and reason why because you were Mr. Kentucky, you were an All-American. So make sure you give us all of that background as well.
Well, before I talk about that and my basketball career, I probably need to visit my family life, okay?
Yes.
Because that, you know how important that is. I don't have to
absolutely.
I don't have to tell you that. But you know, I'm one of 10 kids, 7 boys and 3 girls, and I was right in the middle, 5 older, 4 younger. So, you know, I had the big brothers, big sisters telling me what to do, and I wasn't old enough to tell the younger ones what to do. But I was right there in the middle. So it was a good place for me. Now, there were 10 of us. We lived in a housing project in Lexington. We had a 3-bedroom apartment. There were 10 kids trying to fight. 3 girls were in one room. They were good to go. And then at times there were 7 boys trying to fit in the other bedroom because my mom had her bedroom. My oldest brother, he didn't have to worry about it because he got to sleep downstairs on the couch. So between me and my other brothers, we would be fighting to see who was going to get in one of these two beds that we had in there, kind of twin-sized beds. And, you know, if I had a game on a Friday night and went out to get some McDonald's or something after the game, by the time I got home, the beds were taken, man. And you know, I had to sleep on the floor or down at the bottom of the bed where I was smelling feet all night, you know. But that was such a wonderful way to grow up. My father wasn't around after the time I was probably 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. So I didn't really get to know him. My mom did everything. She provided for us. She worked as much as she had to. She cleaned other people's homes. She just did whatever she had to do, help raise other people's kids in addition to her 10. But so she's my hero. She was my hero. She passed away a year or so ago, year and a half. But she was my hero because she went out of her way, did everything she possibly could to take care of us. And, you know, I don't like to tell people that there were times when we didn't have anything to eat because I never went without a meal. I mean, there was always something, even if it was a peanut butter sandwich, we had something to eat. But there were times that were, in most people's minds, there were tough times. But the fact of the matter is, especially now that I'm older and I can appreciate growing up the way we grew up, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I mean, and so I can't talk about Bryan Station and my basketball until I give a little background about where I came from, you know,
Yes.
which is so important. And still, we've lost one of my siblings, but there's still 9 of us kicking around, and we still love each other and get along, and we get together. And those days, those formative years, is what carry us now. So I was very, very blessed to be able to experience life the way I experienced it. Once I started playing basketball, the 7th grade, I went to Lexington. I went to Dunbar Junior High School in Lexington. I made the team, but I quit. The 8th grade, that was the 8th grade. I went to Dunbar. I made the team and I quit. So my 9th grade year, I finally grew, as I say, from 5'8"
To 6'3".
to 6'3". I showed up at my high school, Dunbar High School in Lexington. And my coaches told me, said, if you come in here talking about quitting this team, you'll never walk again. And that was back in the days when coaches could be coaches. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I had Scoop Brown, Robert Scoop Brown, and Richard Green. They were my high school coaches my 9th grade year. So from that time on, I focused on basketball and I stayed with it. And it was a part of me long after that. So in order to talk about growing up, about the basketball part, I really think I needed to go into some history. Now, you talk about, you asked the question, how did I narrow it down to University of Kentucky? Now, that wasn't an easy decision, okay? I'll be upfront and honest and truthful with you about that. It wasn't an easy decision because all of those years that I'm talking about growing up in Lexington in the housing project, we were probably 10, 15-minute walk from my neighborhood to campus.
Okay.
So I'm in the hood. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm right there, man. I'm a part of it. Except there were no black players at the University of Kentucky. Reputation was they didn't want us there. And so we never thought about playing there. Gotcha. And I say that you got to understand that high school basketball in Lexington has always been big time basketball. And there were so many guys who came along before me who could play circles around me, man. They could do whatever the heck they wanted to me on the basketball court. And all of these guys who came through Dunbar and who came through the old Douglas High School there in Lexington, many of these guys were good enough to play at the University of Kentucky, but they weren't even given a chance. Mm-hmm. They weren't even looked at. They weren't recruited. They weren't acknowledged. So for me, growing up in that neighborhood, the University of Kentucky wasn't a choice. They finally made a coaching change at the University of Kentucky, and Joe B. Hall came in, and one of his mandates was to open up the program to include African Americans.
Wow.
And it was not an easy decision for Coach Hall. A lot of people didn't want that.
Sure, they fought that.
Yeah, a lot of people fought that. Number one, they didn't want to lose the coach they had prior to Coach Hall coming, Coach Adolph Rupp. They didn't want to lose him because he had been highly successful. I mean, he had won championships and he had done some really special stuff at the University of Kentucky. Back in those days, they had an age clause where you had to retire from state jobs for sure. You had to retire at a certain age. He got to that age and he had to retire. So Coach Hall came in and immediately started recruiting African-American players to come to the University of Kentucky. Now, you have to understand, playing basketball in the hood, in Douglas Park, the Dirt Bowl, all the places we used to play as kids, none of those guys, and we had guys who were 30, we had guys who were 70 come to the park on Sunday afternoons and watch us play basketball. None of those guys wanted James Lee and I. James was also from Lexington, played at Henry Clay. None of them wanted us, hardly any of them wanted us to go to the University of Kentucky. In our church, the deacons, the men who were we looked up to, they didn't want us to go to the University of Kentucky. So that decision wasn't easy. But I as I got older and as our high school team started to travel around the state of Kentucky, and we went into some areas that the guys on the basketball team, were the only black people in the building.
Yeah.
Those were some of the gyms we went to play. But every gym I went to, all the people in there had on blue and white Kentucky stuff, and they had signs holding them up and chanting, "We want you, we want you, Kentucky, we want you." So hearing that, whether I'm at home playing in our building at Bryan Station, or whether I'm in Hazard, Kentucky, whether I'm in Moorhead, Kentucky, whether I'm in Winchester, Kentucky, no matter where we played, fans made it clear that they wanted me to come to the University of Kentucky. So that's when I started thinking, well, maybe that is a possibility. And sure enough, it turned out that way. A lot of people ask me, well, if you're not going to go to Kentucky, where were you going to go? I was thinking as a kid growing up that I would go down the road to Frankfort to Kentucky State University because that's where all the black guys went to play.
Right.
They had great teams back in those days, really, really good teams. So I thought, man, if I can go to college, not even as a basketball player, but if I get lucky enough to be able to afford to go to college, I'm going to Kentucky State University. That was my choice.
Mhm.
Now, as I played more high school ball and I got better and better and better, I had all these big time schools, UCLA, UNLV, Indiana, you name it. I received
A letter.
attention from them.
Mm.
And it got beyond letters to where they would come in to visit University of Louisville, those kind of teams. Now, the only major college visit I took, because I did go down to Richmond to EKU to look around, just went on our own, not an official thing, but we just went to look around, myself and some of my buddies. The only other college visit I made, and the school I was going to go to until I changed my mind on Kentucky, was the University of Tennessee. I know the Volunteers, man, our biggest rival.
Right.
Especially back in those days, because we didn't play University of Louisville. But I made a trip down to Knoxville to visit University of Tennessee. They invited me to come down to a basketball camp and to visit and to see the school. Now, I had invitations from other colleges. As a matter of fact, I had a trip set up. And back in those days, you could take as many trips as you wanted. But I had a trip set up. I was going to fly from Lexington, Kentucky to Los Angeles to visit UCLA, who was the premier school in basketball at that time. I was going to go from Los Angeles to the University of Hawaii to go visit University of Hawaii. And I just wanted to see what in the heck Hawaii was. I didn't know they had a university. But when they sent me information, they invite me to come for a visit. I said, I'm gonna go out to Hawaii, man. And then on the way back, Jerry Tarkanian and UNLV, they invited me to stop into UNLV for a visit. And I had the tickets, man. And I'm thinking, this is gonna be awesome. You know, the fact of the matter is, I still have those tickets because I was scared to fly.
Oh, my goodness.
Get on an airplane, man. I wouldn't get on a plane to go anywhere to visit. I just wouldn't do it. I was scared. I wanted to be on the ground. I just didn't. So we didn't have a car at that time to go to Knoxville. So I got on a Greyhound bus. And I rode at Cisco. I know you never went on a college visit on a Greyhound bus. I know you didn't.
No, I did not.
I know that, man. But I went on a college visit. I rode a Greyhound bus down to Knoxville, stopped in every little town between here and Knoxville.
Was it a 10-hour drive?
Huh?
Was it about a 10-hour drive?
Well, it ended up being that, just simply because of all the stops, man, you know.
Yeah.
So I went to Tennessee and really loved it, man. They treated me like a king, and I thought, this is where I'm going to college. You know, I don't need to see anything else. But fortunately, Kentucky made the effort. They made me feel welcome, and I ended up at the University of Kentucky.
Well, my question is, if it's okay, again, I'm going to go back.
Sure.
So everybody in Lexington is telling you not to go to the University of Kentucky, but you had a lot of siblings, and then you said that your iron skillet was your mom, God rest her soul. Sorry for your loss on that. Mm-hmm. Okay, what was your family saying? Because you were in the middle. That's what you said. Yeah. So the ones that's older than you feel like doesn't matter who you are, Goose Givens or whatever, go sweep the floor.
That's right. That's right.
So with that said, what was your family saying at that time?
Well, the only one I don't want to say I cared about, but I paid the most attention to was my mom.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And my mom said, I don't want you to go to the University of Kentucky.
What?
Yeah, she said, I don't want you to go over there. Those people don't want you there. You know how moms are, man.
She's afraid something going to happen to her baby.
Yeah, those people don't want you over there. You don't need to be going to the university. That's what she said. But she wanted me to make the decision. She gave me her opinion, as did my other siblings. My younger ones were too young to really know.
Okay.
My older ones, one had already gone to the service by that time, so Andy was out of the house. Michael, my other brother, who played basketball at Henry Clay High School, he had gone to San Diego to play at a small college out there in San Diego, so he wasn't there every day. My brother Anthony, who is the brother right above me, he was my general manager. He was my advisor. He was the one who every letter that came in, those college letters, if he could get his hands on it, he was filling every one of them out and he was sending them back in. I got one from Duquesne,
Okay.
and he said, "Here, let me see that." And I said, "Man, where is Duquesne? Where's that university?" I didn't know what it was, man. Right. I had no clue. He said, "No, that's Duquesne, man. That's a good school up here." He was one of my real supports, no question about it. And he was on board with the University of Kentucky. He was the oldest brother, closest to me in the house at that time. So he was good to go with it. So that's kind of how that went. And yeah, family meant a lot. And I know it doesn't sound like much when my mom was telling me not to do it and I did it anyway. But how many times have we kind of done our thing anyway, even though your mom or your dad say, "Boy, don't you do that," and you do it anyway. But that was the thing. You know, my mom, interestingly enough, never went to one of my high school games. She, as a matter of fact, when I was a freshman, 9th grade year, she wouldn't sign the permission slip for me to play basketball because she was so nervous that I was going to get hurt. So she wouldn't sign the permission slip. So I took it to my older sister and I said, "Regina, you gotta sign this for me. I want to play basketball. You gotta sign this. Boy, don't you get me in trouble." I said, no, she'll never know. She'll never know. I said, "But you gotta sign this." So my sister Regina signed the permission slip that you had to bring back, signed by your parent, signed my mother's name to it, giving me permission to play basketball. 2 weeks later in practice, I run into a guy, I break my nose.
Uh-oh.
It's way over here. So I go home in an ambulance from practice. I go to the house, pick up my mom, and she almost beat me in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. "Boy, you're not supposed to even be playing basketball. What are you talking about? Wow. What do you mean you're playing basketball? You're not, how did you play? I didn't sign that piece of paper." I said, "Yeah, Mom, I couldn't throw my sister under the bus,
Right.
I said, "Well, I just put your name on it and they took it, But so that's an interesting story. But, my mother, my sophomore year, my first year of high school, I actually started out high school basketball at Henry Clay High School in Lexington with James Lee. James Lee and I went to church together. His dad, Reverend A.B. Lee, was the pastor at the church I went to. So James and I knew each other long before our basketball paths crossed. But I went to Henry Clay first.
Okay.
And it just so happened the first 2 days of tryouts, I was at Henry Clay High School. On that Wednesday, we moved from Henry Clay District to Bryan Station District. And the last 2 days of that week at Bryan Station, I tried out for the team at Bryan Station. So I made 2 teams in the same week at Henry Clay and at Bryan Station. But my mom never saw me play. And when basketball season rolled around, she said, "How many points do you think you're going to get?" And I said, Mama, I don't even know if I'm going to score. You know, these guys are really good. She said, well, I'll give you $1 for every point you score.
Okay.
Now, coming from my mom, who didn't have $1 to waste on anything, she told me that. So my first game, I might have gotten something like 18 points. And then I started getting 20s. Now, I never collected the first $1. Don't get me wrong. I never went to her for $1. So after I started scoring, she said, well, I better make it 50 cents. And then I kept scoring. She said, well, I'll make it $0.25. I'll give you $0.25. But she supported me. She would listen to the games on the radio, because most of our games at that time were on radio.
Okay.
And she would listen for as long as she could. If it was a close game, she would turn it off and go do the laundry or wash dishes or whatever she was doing. But she never saw a game in high school. I finally talked her into coming to a college game. Finally, my final game, my senior year at the University of Kentucky, she decided that she would come and watch me play. Now, here's the story, and I talk about it in my book. Here's the story. She was at the game. My sister was on one side. My brother was on the other side. Anthony was on one. Paulette, my younger sister, was on the other. They were introducing us. And my sister looked over at my mom after they called my name, and I run out, and she looked over at my mom, and she said, and she saw tears in my mom's eyes. And she said to my sister, my sister said, Mama, why are you crying? Why are you crying? She said, Polly, we called my sister Paulette, we call her Polly, said, Polly, why are they booing him? She said, Mama, they're not booing him, they're saying Goose. She thought they were booing me. That's the kind of mother she is, you know. But she was a great woman, man. She was so sweet, and but she supported me all the way. She did go to the NCAA tournament when we played in St. Louis. The folks she worked with at that time, she was working at Eastern State Hospital. So her co-workers put their money together. And you're talking about low-income people who didn't, like my mom, didn't have money to spare. So they put their money together, and they paid for her an airline ticket to go to St. Louis to watch me play. So she was there, and she got to enjoy that. So that was really special.
Was that her first time flying?
Yes, that was her first time flying as well. And I might have to rethink that. I think she flew out there.
Long ways.
It's a long way to drive.
Yes.
6 hours, not
6 hours. Yeah.
But I think she flew because those folks put their money together to help pay for her trip to St. Louis.
That was awesome. So you have so many things in the book. When I was going through it, I didn't get a chance to read all of it, but the parts that I did read was amazing. So is it chapter 11? Was that the hardest chapter?
Chapter 11. Let me look here and see.
Oh, that's the one that says the lowest point, I think was the.
Yeah, you know, listen.
Or was something else the harder to? Was that hard? Because you got very, very personal, and I know that's the purpose of a memoir, is to tell people about who you are outside of the glitz and glamour and the 41 points and and all of that stuff, which we absolutely love. And so it was very courageous of you to write this book, Jack.
Well, I wish I could say that every chapter of my life, if you will, was fine and dandy, was good, was a high point. I wish I could say that, but the fact of the matter is life happens.
Absolutely.
Life happens. And sometimes you bring stuff on yourself. For instance, I had just gotten a job with the Orlando Magic, broadcasting the games on TV, their color analyst. A high point. Couldn't have come at a better time. Financially, couldn't come at a better time. I mean, I was going through some stuff. So I get this job with the Orlando Magic, and man, I was on cloud nine. So we moved down to Orlando, found us a place to rent, my wife and I, and our two kids. We moved down to Orlando, found a place, everything was great. I got up one day to go to watch practice, watch the team work out, the Orlando Magic, watch them work out. I get up and I go outside, and my car is gone. My Benz is not in the driveway. And I'm thinking, goodness gracious, somebody stole my car. It's not there. So I run back in, tell my wife my car is gone. And she said, well, you better call the police. I called the police. And that officer on the other end, I said, man, my car is gone. Somebody got my, what kind is Mercedes, this and that. And I tell him all about it. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, are you up on your payments? And I get real quiet. I get real quiet.
Okay.
Are you up on your payments? Well, no, I'm about 3 months behind, but I got me a good job and I'm going to be making good money and I'm going to be able to catch up real quick. And he said, well, you better call your leasing company first and make sure they didn't come and get that car. Well, turns out they had come and repossessed the vehicle. I brought that on myself because I was living or trying to live beyond my means. I was spending money, had a business, and I'd made a lot of money, but I was spending it faster than I was making it. So that's one of the things that happened in my life that I brought on myself. I take responsibility for that. And I learned the most valuable lesson, one of the most valuable lessons in my life, I learned through that experience. And, you know, I talked to God a lot after that and asked him why, and to show me why does stuff happen the way it does. And what I gleaned from that was, listen, I was trying to keep up with the Joneses in Lexington, Kentucky, the people I was working around, people I hung out with, the bankers and the coal miners and all these people I met at the University of Kentucky. I was trying to live up to snuff with those folks. What I figured out was, man, just think if I'm trying to live on the level of Shaquille O'Neal, who was on some of those teams down there.
Right.
And what about all of these other players that are making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they have houses that grow big as Lexington, you know, and 5 to 6 cars? I said, what if I hadn't learned this lesson and I started trying to live up to them?
Right.
Then I would have, who knows what I would have done trying to keep up with those folks. So God kind of told me, I'm providing for you. Why can't you be happy with what you got? So that was one of the biggest lessons I learned. One of the most important lessons, to be thankful for. And coming from where I came from, I should have been thankful for everything I had, because I was doing good at that time.
Right.
So
compared to where you were. Yes.
Yeah. So that was a huge lesson that I had to learn.
Right.
But that's a lesson that a lot of people in our community have to learn.
Sure.
And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the status
Yeah.
and what people are like, again, what people are driving and what model car you're driving and stuff like that. And we don't understand the bigger picture. But being around, I think a lot of the, and I think you still could have learned that lesson even around, because the people around you weren't like, because they were living like that. You don't know what they were like, and you don't know how they're living. I don't know. That's a great lesson. That's a great lesson that definitely young kids need to know, especially with the NIL and all the money that they're making right now. That's a valuable lesson. I hope that's something that you always get an opportunity when you're in front of young kids, that you really, really send that message home to them.
Yeah, I try to share that kind of stuff. I mean, I learned that. Chapter 11 was a situation that sometimes
the allegation.
Yeah, sometimes you don't bring stuff on yourself.
And you just get accused. I can't imagine going through that.
Oh, I couldn't imagine.
Do you want people to read about it in the book, or you want to touch on it?
Well, I'll touch on it. I have no problem with it. Now, listen, you got to understand that there were some things that I would just as soon not talked about.
So yes.
In this book, and this is one.
In the book, okay.
Because in some ways it was the low point, the toughest time of my life, because my character was being challenged for the first time.
Yes.
But my co-writer, Doug Brunk, good guy, really, really good guy, and a good writer. Doug told me, he said, well, listen, if you're going to talk about all the good stuff,
you got to talk about some of the bad as well.
About the tough times, because there are lessons to be learned from that as well.
Absolutely.
And he was so right. And I'll just say about that, that I had never really talked to anybody in depth
about that situation. Yeah.
And
I love how supportive she was for you.
Oh, she was a rock star.
Yes.
But I never talked to. I was in a men's group, which was huge, because guys I went to church with, guys who, in my mind, were on top of the world. We had a big insurance agent who was making all kind of money, and real estate agents, and guys who represented players, sports agents. And we had this group who in our church was the up and coming young stars, if you will, up and coming. And so we started meeting about the same time this happened. We started meeting. And I can't tell you how important that was for me, because what I learned was everybody's going through something. Yes. Everybody's going through something. And you can put on the face you want.
Yes, all you want to.
You can put on that face, and you can live that lie if you want. But in this group, with this 6 or 7 guys, you better tell what's going on. You better be real. And it helped me a lot to know that I wasn't the only one going through stuff. But so without getting into that story too deeply.
No, because they definitely need to read that in the book.
Yeah, I was accused of something as serious as any guy can be accused of as a coach. I coached my daughter's team, basketball team, from the time she was probably 11 up until she went to college and got her scholarship to Florida Atlantic University. I coached her, and I was accused of something by a kid that was very, very difficult. But to walk through that was truly amazing. I mean, when you're going through tough times like that, if you don't get close to God,
Ooh,
you ain't gonna make it. I
facts.
mean, you just can't do it.
Yeah.
So I walked and I
And
listened,
having the support that you had.
and I had a lot of support. My
Yes.
family was. I mean, the reason I started this out talking about my family, not just my wife and my kids, but my my brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, all of these, because the family, they got me through it, man. And I went through this, and man, I grew in so many ways. And you want to know the strange thing about it, talking about it for the first time, and I got into it in the book, whether I wanted to or not. But talking about it, man, once I got it out, I felt like, man, about 100 tons had been lifted off of my back. And I'm like, goodness gracious, why didn't I
say
do this years ago? I mean, this was a long time ago when that happened. It turned out all right. It turned out great. I'm very thankful, not so much thankful for that experience, but I'm thankful that that I know that relationship that I had with my family, but especially the relationship I had with the Lord, was strong enough to get you through just about anything. Well, I know anything you want to go through. And that was good. I mean, that was good to go through that and to get that off of my shoulders, if you will, because I didn't enjoy the experience, but I enjoyed the experience, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess I'm not sweeping that. That's touching. It really is. But I'm going to go back to a smiling day.
Yeah,
we're about to smile again.
All right.
Where was you at? Okay, where was you at when the Atlanta Hawks drafted you? Was you at home? Was you with your friends, with your family? Because, coming from Lexington, Kentucky, that had to be huge because those are people you see out there.
Yeah.
And then you became one of those draftees and went to the Atlanta Hawks for, I think, 2 or 3 years, or was it 2 or 3 or 4?
2 or 3.
Yeah. Yes. So where was you at there? I didn't mean to change the subject, but I wanted to get that question in.
I'm glad you did. It's not like nowadays you go to New York and you're in the green room and you're sitting out in the middle of everybody and TV cameras on you and everything. It wasn't that at all. I was at home.
Okay.
Sitting by the phone. Of course, we didn't have cell phones, so the only number they had was my house phone. So I was sitting there at the house. I waited for the phone to ring. We didn't have.
Mind you, all your brothers and sisters had to stay off the phone, right?
Yeah, we didn't. Hey, we didn't have a party line at that time. Somebody down the street wasn't on it. We didn't have to worry about that. We did have a regular phone. We had a regular phone line at that time. So everybody was off the phone. I knew a call was coming, and I got the call from the Atlanta Hawks, and they said, we want to draft you and want you to come down, and so that was good. And there were a couple of TV cameras outside my house. So I went out after that and did a couple of interviews for local TV. And it was very special, very, very special. Now, I was unlike most kids growing up, especially now. I didn't know anything about the NBA, hardly at all. I didn't watch it. I didn't aspire to play in the NBA. I thought about it, but the NBA was, you're talking about tough times. That was a tough time for me because, number one, it's my first time living away from my mama. I lived in the dorm, but that was 15 minutes away.
Absolutely.
So I could always get
15
home.
minutes away.
Yeah, I could always get home, get a meal, get my laundry done. I could always do that kind of stuff. And the NBA is a business. just like any professional sport. It's a business. You got to manage your time. You got to manage your money. You got to manage everything. Your life off the court. You got to manage your life on the court. It was very tough, and it was not a fun experience for me. I tried to make it, but my confidence was at an all-time low. Confidence in my ability, and you think, man, how could that happen? You're just coming off of scoring 41 points in the NCAA championship game, man. How can you not be confident? Man, I found out immediately that everybody in the NBA is good.
Yeah.
There are no bad players. And from 1 to 12 at that time, 1 to 12, they're trying to kick your butt every day. And it was just tough to make that adjustment and to really get comfortable in the NBA for me. So that's one reason why it didn't last any longer than it did. My confidence, I just didn't know that I belonged. I talk about that in the book as well. Okay. But I'm glad I went through the experience. I wish I had it to do all over again.
Right.
I would. It's one of those things. If I know then what I know now, it's one of those things, because I was good enough. I just didn't believe it. And you talk about messages to young kids. You talk about messages to young athletes. You talk about messages to the kids that I talk to at graduations and that kind of stuff. Man, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe it. You're not going to be able to make it. That is the lesson I try to get across to young people. You got to trust. It doesn't matter if you grew up one of 10 kids and your daddy wasn't there and your mama did this and, you had to walk 6 miles to school uphill both ways. It doesn't matter about all of that. Right. If you believe in yourself, you can make it.
You can make it.
Absolutely.
That's the message I try to tell young people.
My other one is two-part question is, I was fortunate to be around Damani Dawson when he got drafted with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The first thing Damani is, because Damani is unbelievable person. If you met him, he is a fantastic person. The first thing that he said he was buying when he got drafted is that fishing pole that he wanted. Now, what was your first thing that popped in your head? Doesn't mean you bought it, but what's the first thing that you thought, I'm gonna make a little more money than I'm making, if you will, that you was looking to buy? So Damani was a fishing pole, and we all looked at him, a fishing pole, but that's how humble he is as a person.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I wanted to buy was I wanted to give my mama a bigger house.
Yes.
That's the first thing I wanted to buy. But
his mom wasn't moving from her house. I can tell you that.
His mom?
No, she stayed in her house.
And my mom did the same thing. She said, boy, you're not spending your money on me. If you get something, you better get yourself something.
Yes.
But back in those days, we didn't make big money. Right. Now, it was big for the time. But we didn't make big money. I mean, Damani made big money. I was fortunate to make enough to live on. I mean, that's what it was for me. But I don't know. I really didn't want anything. I wanted a car. So I did buy a car. But other than that, I didn't really get into spending a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money to spend.
Gotcha.
But I was trying to live comfortable, and that was what I was able to do.
Okay, good stuff. Well, I have not been able to go into the chat, but we have lots of questions. And so we're already almost out of time, so we're not going to be able to address all of them. But I do want to acknowledge Mr. Alvin Brown is who actually talked me into bringing you on my show, because he said that it would be a great show, and it absolutely is, because even though I have the book, it's just still nice just hearing it from you. I just want to I always appreciate your humbleness when I see you, because I know I come to you every time. I'm in your face like everybody else, like a fan. And you're always just so nice and sweet. And I'm going to tell you, my absolute best time was when we were at the Lexington African American Hall of Fame at the gala, and I got to take a picture in between you and James Lee.
Yeah, I still have that picture. Yeah.
You do? Yeah. So that is probably my absolute time. So Mr. Brown has lots of stuff. I know he's got lots of questions. I don't even know, Mr. Alvin, I don't even know which one to ask first, because he addresses James Lee, of course, and his role. Now, did you recruit James to Kentucky?
No, James and I went at the same time. We were seniors in high school.
Oh, y'all were both seniors. Okay,
we had our signing day together. He and I, to go to the University of Kentucky.
Well, I was with you on that. I always thought you was one grade older. I don't know why.
Yeah, man, don't make me older than James.
Well, no, I said grade. I didn't say age. I said grade.
No, we're the same year, man. We started together and ended together at the university. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So you coached your daughter's AAU team, and I loved, in the book where I didn't recognize a lot of the names, because of course I coach basketball and I'm a big, women's basketball fan. And I didn't recognize some of the names, probably because I'm here and I follow just certain players. But I really love the fact that the majority of your girls went on to play D1 ball. And so Miss Mike Gray says, do you remember the Central Kentucky Angels?
Oh my goodness, the Angels, man. Absolutely. I remember the Angels. And, we were playing, the first time I saw them, we were playing, and we used to play each other because we all went to the same tournaments and everything. And man, we played them at one of the AAU national tournaments, I think it was. I don't remember which year because we saw them all the time.
Right.
And they had a little point guard, man. She was about as big as a minute, but she was built like a fullback, man.
Right.
She was one of the quickest guards I have ever seen. She's going to be upset because I see her all the time now, because my grandson plays baseball with her nephew, I think it is.
Okay.
But I see them all the time. But the Kentucky Angels were good. And only when we were able to beat them, finally able to beat them, did I know our team was pretty good.
Now, what was the name of your team, Coach?
Well, we were the Orlando Comets.
The Comets.
Orlando Comets. And you're right. We won the AU National Tournament. My daughter's senior year, I think. Mm-hmm. We won the AAU Nationals down in Orlando. We competed every year for the Nationals, and we would play tournaments everywhere. And Kentucky Angels played in tournaments all over the place. So
yes, I coached it. Yeah, but Mike gave me my AAU opportunity to coach in that organization.
Yeah, man, that brings back so many great things.
I love it.
They spanked us, man, for a while, and when we finally beat them, I knew we were pretty good because we beat the Angels, man.
Right. Mr. Brown said, why did Kenny Higgs' recruitment by Coach Hall fall through?
Well, that's a good question.
Good question.
Kenny Higgs was a great player. His Owensboro team beat my Bryan Station team in the state semifinals one year, and they went on and won the state tournament. They beat us my sophomore year. And Kenny really wanted to go to the University of Kentucky. I don't really know all the details as to why it kind of fell through, but Kenny came along at a time when he was kind of flamboyant. He wore the fur coats and the chains and all of that stuff. And
That's too much for Kentucky.
Well, I don't think the timing was right at the
Right.
University of Kentucky for his personality.
Right.
Now, that's not to say I'm right about that.
Right.
That's just my guess. But our thought was James, Kenny, and myself,
Mhm.
we thought, because we played in the Kentucky-Indiana All-Star game together, and we thought we were going to be at the University of Kentucky
together. Okay.
But he ended up going to LSU and having a great career there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I just don't know that the timing was right for Kenny Higgs at the
Gotcha.
University of Kentucky.
Well, he should have waited and then got on campus and then came out with the fairs.
Exactly.
You know, because I was fortunate to meet him because his brother, Mark Higgs, and I were roommates at UK in football.
Yeah.
And Mark was outstanding as well. So.
Mark, a wonderful guy. Yeah.
Yes.
And
So
Kenny was. Kenny was.
Yes, Kenny, yes.
Okay. So Mr. Brown said, congratulations on becoming the color commentator with Tom Leach, taking over for the late Mike Pratt.
And I had a question on that. If I can get that in. Can I get that in?
Go ahead, because we're running out of time.
Okay, I
got one.
Okay, I got a question there. All right. How exciting was to you to be in that seat? To be able to actually announce something that you've done. You know, people talk about myself and my son playing at UK, but to be sitting there and you're one of the commentators where you're at and you got the phone call and you went through the interview and then they said, we want you to do it. I mean, how exciting was that?
It was great. It was great. Listen, I had been in broadcasting for 30 years. I had been broadcasting games, not a lot of radio, mostly TV. I started out my career in Lexington on the radio. I kept moving up from there, doing all kinds of college games for every college network, NBC, CBS, ESPN, everybody I did games for. Finally got an opportunity in the NBA, went down with the Orlando Magic and did their games for 15 seasons and got in with Turner Sports doing their games. So I've been around it a long time. I got out of it for a number of years. I got away from it, partly because of that situation in Orlando, because that was one of the first times someone came at me because of who I was and what I was doing. And I thought to myself, man, it ain't worth it. I'm just going to fly below the radar. So at that time, I got my real estate license. I was in the commercial real estate business. I got my real estate broker's license. So we were developing like 3,000 acres down in Southwest Orlando around Disney. We built the convention center and a lot of hotels down in that area. So we were developing property, doing good stuff. The downturn in the economy happened. Real estate fell off the map as far as the valuation of property. So I got out of that, and my wife said, I want to get back to Kentucky because our parents are getting older. I want to be there for my mom and dad, and I wanted to be there for my mom. So at that time, we decided to come back to Kentucky. I was and still am working for a company, the vice president of business development for a construction company, Bowling Group. I came back up to take a position with them. I'm still with them after 15 years. So when the opportunity came to get back on the radio, get back into broadcasting, I couldn't have been any more happy, man. I was like, goodness gracious, man, at my age, down on the downside, on the downside of my career and working, I said, what a
great opportunity.
I couldn't think of a better way to end my career than right back where I started. So again, God was good and gave me the opportunity, and he put me in this position, and I'm just trying to make the most of it, man. I love what I do. I love working with Tom Leach.
Great guy.
I love the opportunities that it affords me, being a broadcaster, being on the University of Kentucky radio network. I love all of it, and I'm trying my best to squeeze 5 more years out before I ride off into the sunset, the Lord willing. And if I could get 4 or 5 more years in. My wife's been good enough to let me continue to work and do stuff and stay busy. So if I can squeeze 4 or 5 more years in, and everything else I'm doing is kind of geared towards that 5-year plan, I'll be the happiest man in the world. I already am. I've been blessed, man. My life has been so good. I mean, so good. People ask me sometimes, man, if you could change anything, what would you change? I wouldn't change a thing. I mean,
even all the heartaches and
the heartaches are the things that makes you what you are. So even that, because what I found out, it didn't seem like it a lot of times going through it, but even that won't kill you.
Absolutely.
Didn't seem like it at times, but even that won't kill you. If you just keep getting up and keep plugging along, which is what I tried to do.
Okay, I'm gonna try to I'm trying to wind this down, but I have 2 questions that I have to get out. Okay, so I know Zariah is playing golf at Scott County.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of your grandchildren see any possibility of being a ball player?
Well, Zariah, she doesn't want any part of basketball. She's
volleyball.
She's a volleyball player
and golf.
She's a golfer, and I'm telling her, you stay right where you are, because your mom and dad, you'll get a scholarship in one of those 2.
Absolutely, yes.
You're going to get a scholarship. So I'm telling her, you stay right where you are. Forget about basketball. Don't even think about it. But now my grandson Jalen, he's 13 now.
Okay.
He's a pretty good little player.
Okay.
He's growing. He wears about 12 and a half shoe.
Wow.
So I think he has a growth spurt in him. And if I can get him to 6'3" with the way he handles the ball and shoots the ball, he'll make somebody a pretty good point guard, So I'm hoping he'll continue to play. My thing that I have worked hardest on, because I had to deal with this a little bit with my son, but I try to make sure he knows that he's Jalen.
Yes.
He ain't Jack. He ain't Papa.
Right.
You're Jalen, and you be the best you can be. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about trying to prove to people, because my son Jeremy, he had to go through that. Because he was 6'6", 6'7", great athlete. But everybody who met him, the first question out of their mouth is, are you as good as your dad? And he just couldn't live that. He couldn't live that life.
That's too much pressure.
It is. And I told him one day, I said, man, look, I said, if you're playing basketball because you're trying to make me happy, I said, you better stop playing right now. You play because you want to play. And he did. He played, and he had a good high school career, went on to a small college and played, but he never loved it. And I think that was part of the reason why.
Right.
I coached my daughter. She was different than my son, and she could be, which was great. And I really loved it. I coached Jalen when he was young. His 5, 6, 7 years old. I coached him as well. But we got to the point where I said, man, somebody else has to get a hold of him, not me. Yeah. So I turned him over to other people, and it's really helped out, really worked out well. So I'm hoping he continues to play. I really do. And, my little ones, real little ones, they're too young to know, but I think they'll be fine.
Okay. So my last question, first of all, I am excited about the upcoming women's and men's basketball season at the University of Kentucky. Let's be straight clear about that. I'm excited about both teams. I can't wait till they get started. Matter of fact, Big Blue Madness is this Friday, right?
Big Blue Madness coming up Friday.
Okay, good stuff. Now, my question is, who is your all-time UK dream team?
Oh my goodness.
Now, before you answer, I'm giving you a chance to think about that.
Okay.
We put Kenny Walker on the spot too.
Yeah.
So you.
And that's a great question. And I would, if I had to go with the center position, start out with the center position. I would probably go, and it depends on, but I would probably go Dan Issel.
Okay.
Issel,
Okay.
At the five spot. Then it could be 4. I might throw Kenny Walker in there.
Of course.
As a 4.
4.
I would probably put Mashburn as the 3 in my position. I'd put Mashburn at the 2. I'm probably going to put Tony Delk. And I know it's a bunch of people. I know that.
We don't care about if we only want what your dream team is. We don't care about what everybody else thinks.
Probably put Tony Delk. And then the point guard, I might have to go with Rondo.
Okay, who you got on the bench?
On the bench, I'm going to be on the bench. I'm going to be on the bench. But Anthony Davis is going to be, and he could be in the starting. He could mix with Kenny Walker. And I'm putting Kenny there because of what he did at Kentucky. Yes. And he did more at Kentucky than Anthony Davis did, even though Anthony was the player of the year.
Right.
But Anthony Davis is going to be in that number. Tayshaun Prince is probably going to be in that number. The bigs would probably, man, you got to go. You got to go guys like Carl Towns or
yes,
one of those kind of guys. Boogie. You'd have to think about putting them on the bench. The guards, you can go all over the place. Rex Chapman. Cal Macy might be in that number as point guard, one of the point guards on the bench. Now you got to understand, I don't have a lot of these young dudes on the team. These last
couple of years,
last 5 or 6 years. And you can, and I'm going more on what they did at Kentucky than what they have become in the NBA.
Right.
Because there are a bunch of them that I would add if you look at the
if they played the way at Kentucky, the way they played in the NBA.
Yeah, and I'm leaving about 1,000 guys off of the list. I know already, but off the top of my head, those are some who would be in the number.
Well, Jack, what normally happens right now is I usually walk away because this is her show. But I want to say it's been an honor. It's always an honor to talk to you when I see you out here in Lexington. And thanks for coming on the Wife Show. And I mean, you brought a light to. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting the book. Her reading skills is a lot better than mine, so she'll be done with it in a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So everybody needs to go out and get the book if you don't have it. There we go. Okay. Yeah. And it's really a my wife said a fun read, and I'm looking forward to it. But again, thank you for coming on. Very nice talking to you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Right. I look forward to seeing you as well.
So Goose, how do we get the book?
Well,
I went, I was able to go to. I live in Hamburg, so they had it at Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble has it. Joseph Beth has it. Amazon has it. Okay. You can get it on Amazon there. lot of places you can pick it up. I try to do book signings all over the place. So, so you can get them, meet me at one of the book signings. I can autograph it and that kind of stuff as well. So, so yeah, fortunately you can find it. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a website or something that you have where we can get your itinerary on where your book signing is? And Deborah Logan says, "Hey, Jack, class of '74, Blind Station High School."
Hey, Deborah, how are you? We're getting ready to have our 50th.
Ooh, y'all about to have y'all 50th?
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Deborah.
So I'm looking forward to that coming up in October. But yeah, I usually go my social media, Goose Givens. You can at Goose Givens. You can find it on X. My Facebook page, I kind of put it on there. So, sometimes, and I need to update my website, goosegivens.com. I need to update that. But yeah, I try to get it out where I'm going to be. Like Thursday of this week, I'll be in Monticello. Friday of this week, which is October 10th.
Okay.
I'll be at Keeneland for Kentucky, the University of Kentucky Day, and I'll be signing books there with Nate Northington, who is the first African American to play in the SEC. Played here at the University of Kentucky. Nate's going to be there signing his book. Derek Ramsey's going to be there signing his book, and I'll be signing my book, and I'll also be introducing Reggie Warford's new book. Reggie passed away a couple of years ago, but Reggie's new book just came out. He finished it just before we lost him. He finished the book, and now it's been edited and it's coming out. Now, it's not out where you can buy it yet. I got some pre-copies, but we'll be there from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
And what day is that again?
It's going to be October 10th, which is I think here in a couple of days. What
day is that? Is that Friday?
Yeah, Friday, October 10th, from 1 to 4. We'll be set up at Keeneland, and man, I'm telling you, I can't wait to meet. I've met Nate Northington, but I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I can't wait to get out and meet him.
Oh my God, I want to meet all of them myself. I got to figure out how I can get off work.
Yeah, you're talking about a pioneer, man.
That'll be a good time.
Oh, we're gonna all of us will be there. Ramsey's got his book. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It is. Well, listen, we're out of time. We went way over time. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring you on. We didn't touch on half of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. So we'll probably have to bring you on for encore because I still wanted to talk about the Lexington African American Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah, man.
What a great time that you and James did with our inaugural. We just finished the third one. And it was great, but oh my God, that first one is still the tops for me. I don't know if there will ever be another one better than that first one.
Well, we had a great time. James and I, obviously, we've been friends for a long, long time, more like brothers in some ways. So it was great being on stage with him. And yeah, I thought it went well. And I'm just dreaming of the time when they asked me to come back and host and MC it again, man. It was so much fun. So much fun.
Okay, I'll have to plug them and let them know. Definitely let them know that. But Jack Goose Givens, thank you so much for being on. I did not give you enough accolades on here because a lot of people that didn't know you, y'all have no idea how outstanding this man was. He was the absolute first All-American, African-American signed at the University of Kentucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was the 1974 Mr. Kentucky basketball.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, there's so many accolades that we did not discuss, Jack.
Listen, that's fine with me. I mean, we got to talk about a lot of good stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And spend some quality time together, and that's all that matters to me. So,
Good stuff.
Terry, you
So
did a great job.
are we still on for Saturday for the tailgate?
I'm there Saturday. Come on by.
Hey, I'm gonna come by looking for my hug and my selfie.
My brother Anthony, he has the biggest and the best tailgate every week at the University of Kentucky. Every home football game, he's there. So he feeds everybody. So come on by.
All right, we'll be there. So don't log off, but I am going to log off. Everybody, thank y'all so much for coming on. Please share, subscribe. Mr. Brown said first African American to own a sporting goods store in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yes, I did.
So yeah, thank you, Mr. Brown, for popping that on real quick. And you might have to go back through all the questions because Mr. Brown had so many questions and stuff. And I apologize, Mr. Brown, that we did not discuss it, but there were so many good things that he was talking about. But you had some really, really good questions in the chat. And Jack, I might have to send you the link so you can go through and see all the questions to see if you still want to maybe acknowledge some of those questions, but they were really, really good. Anyway, don't log off, Jack. And thank y'all, everybody. And we will see y'all all next week. Have a good one. God bless.